What's up, Nige?
Hey, E. So we are about to hear your mystery episode, right? And this season, we're doing something we've never done before. You actually have a different co-host for this episode.
Yep, stepped out on you, Nige.
I'm going to say one thing to you, my friend. I'm happy to support this, but I'm telling you, under no circumstance are we becoming a throuple.
Ooh-wee.
Okay? So before I leave, I do want to mention something we are both really excited about.
Okay.
And that is our upcoming summer tour.
Yes. We're about to hit the road August 4th through the 21st. We're going to hit about 11 different cities.
It's a lot. We're actually going to be traveling by van this time. Yeah, so
it's going to be like Scooby-Doo them, huh?
Exactly. When we did a tour like 2 years ago,
Right.
One of the things I loved about it was how we got to meet so many listeners in person, hang out, answer questions, ask questions. Share a drink together.
Yes. And I don't know if people realize, we pretty much sat there at the end to talk to everybody.
Yeah.
We was able to just, kick back and chill.
What I want to know from listeners are like, where should we go eat when we're in their city? Like, what are the places to get really good food?
See what their hot spots are.
Yes. See where the hot spots are.
11 cities.
11 cities. It's going to be great.
Tickets are on sale now. You can go to earhustlesq.com/tour and grab you a few.
And get them there because I've heard some people actually getting like scam emails about buying tickets someplace else. So buy them on our website.
Go to earhustlesq.com/tour to grab your tickets.
Yes.
What's going on? This is June the Barber. I represent Beardo's Grooming Lounge, a barbershop in San Leandro, California. The following episode of Ear Hustle contains language and content that may not be suitable for all listeners. There is also a brief mention of suicide. Listener discretion is advised.
This is Earlonne Woods.
This is Bruce Wallace.
We are live. Easy E and Bruce E. Brucey.
Good to be back in the studio with you, Earlonne, to reveal the results of the first annual listener-inspired mystery episode. The listeners really came through for us like they always do. We got about 150 suggestions, and our editor, Amy, and I spent days and days poring over them and have narrowed it down to 3 for each of you. And so today we are presenting you with your finalists, and you can choose which one speaks to you the most. So.
1. Who cleans up San Quentin? I was listening to Ear Hustle while I was cleaning this past weekend and thought that cleaning could form the basis of an episode. Spending some time with people who clean or one person's experience of doing so might make some less visible parts of the prison experience visible. Sincerely, Elise Brohl. Number 2, let's see. For Earlonne, Friday night inside. I often listen to Ear Hustle on my drive home from work on Friday. The feel-good of the weekend free time is on its way. I'd like to know, what are Friday nights like inside? And on a deeper level, how do you mark the time inside? Does it all blur together? If so, what does that do to you? Love the show. Alan McMillan, North Yorkshire, UK. Number 3. I thought a great story for Earlonne could be about hair, both in the men's and women's facility. How people express themselves through hair, how it's changed over time, what their hair means to them, what freedoms they do or don't have to style it and curl it the way they want. The list goes on and on as far as questions. And that's from Barbara Swaco McGuire. And we only doing one of them.
You got to pick one, sorry.
So, y'all don't need no plastic on the ground or nothing?
Yeah, let's get a plastic bag.
What are you doing, Tom?
All right, I'm going to lay these plastic bags on the floor so that we can catch as much hair as we can.
Okay, you guessed it. I picked the listener question about hair. And I like this one because everybody in prison has to do something with their hair. And I figured if we're going to do an episode about hair, someone better get their hair cut. So we called in Oscar, one of the best barbers at San Quentin, to help our inside producer, Tom, fix his hair.
How do you like your haircuts? I just want a low fade so that it looks like it's a fade. And don't line me up, man. Every time somebody does it, they make me look like I'm going bald.
You don't got a forehead for
I know,
a lineup, bro.
but fools be doing that,
He
man.
said you ain't got the forehead for the lineup.
They be doing like this, trying to line me up, and then it looks like those, those kung fu movies where the guy shaves like the front half.
Oh, damn.
That's what they be looking like. I'm like, man, what are they doing?
So today on the show, we're going to be talking about hair in prison. And we'll be coming back to check on the progress of Tom's haircut throughout the episode. And joining me today is a special guest and author of the email about hair. I'm Earlonne Woods.
I'm Barbara Sueco.
And this is Ear Hustle from PRX's Radiotopia. Barbara, I bet you didn't read the fine print, did you? That you were going to be the co-host of this episode today?
No. But I'm so excited to be here.
We definitely appreciate it. We had to switch some things up and make it a little bit more exciting. So I'm hoping you're ready to take this co-host chair and do your shit.
I got big shoes to fill. Nigel's amazing.
Indeed, she is. So, being that you fill in those shoes, you got to ask those minutia type questions.
Right.
What does it smell like? No. So, from your email, you had a gang of questions about hair, correct?
Correct. I am so curious just because you guys have done an episode on how people are able to sort of customize their outfits, but I feel like hair can be such an expression of self. So I wondered how people are able to style their hair to express themselves and communicate things about themselves. And then I wondered, who are the people who cut the hair? Were they barbers or stylists before? Is this something they learn inside? And are there special kind of salons for something like this? And also, your George Jackson episode, when you guys talk about him, the theory that he hid a weapon in his hair really got me thinking more about what is allowed and isn't allowed. Just, so much curiosity there.
One of Barbara's questions is, who gets to be a hairdresser? That's what she'd say, a hairdresser in prison.
So I'm going to start by saying I don't know if they would consider themselves hairdressers. Barbers, though, for sure.
So this is the homie Eric Maserati E. Abercrombie. And Ear Hustle listeners know his songs because we've played his riffs in the episode. And he's also a sound designer for the podcast Uncuffed. And he teaches audio engineering in prison, in the men's prison and the women's prison. And when I read your email, Barbara, this is the first person that popped in my head.
Honestly, I feel like anybody could be a barber in prison. You have the person with that official position that has a pay number and everything, that has barber utensils and tools in it. You know what I mean? And that's a paid position. Usually got a nice little setup. It might have a booth and the whole nine. You know what I mean? But then you have the barbers on the yard, the self-appointed barbers, the ones that you're going to, pay with some soups and canteen or something like that. So if you got the talent, and you got a brave soul willing to be your billboard, your muse, and I feel like anybody could do it if that's what they choose to do.
So what he's saying there is there are official barbers in the California Department of Correction and Rehabilitation, which pay them maybe, I'll say, between $20 and $37 a month to cut people's hair. And then you have the unofficial barbers, who are the people that accept canned goods, soups, zoom zooms, and wham whams, chips, the whole nine.
And what equipment do the unofficial barbers, how do they have access to that stuff?
So if it's the official barbers, they just go to the officers and then they have an assigned box, and that box has the equipment they need to cut people's hair. For the unofficial barbers, they can order beard trimmers from the prison catalogs. They're not the high quality ones, but they work. And the one thing that they can't really have is scissors. But don't too many barbers use scissors like that. Oscar, he's one of those good unofficial barbers, and he's cutting Tom's hair with a beard trimmer. How long you been cutting hair?
At least 17 years. I remember myself wanting haircuts. It made me feel better about myself. Made me feel a little bit more confident, especially growing up as a insecure kid. And then going on to prison with cutting hair, it allowed me to see the people's reactions, how it made them feel better about themselves.
Have you ever been an official barber for the institution?
No.
And probably the person that had it couldn't even cut.
Yeah, all zeros.
That's as long as I've known barbers, the motherfucker that got that job can't even cut. Everybody go to people like you.
Yeah, to the side person. Yeah.
Yep. If you really wanted your hair to look good, you don't go to the official barber. You go to the other guy, period.
Fascinating.
So, shall we go to your next question?
Yes, please.
This one you told us over the phone.
I just wondered if also, like, when they go into the salon, I always imagine that that's a place where you can maybe...
The salon?
Or whatever. Like, see, I don't know. I imagine there might be like a room. I guess I imagine because in the show Orange is the New Black, there was like I think like a quote unquote salon or like a place they could go. But I always wondered if it's, I guess if there isn't a salon that doesn't work or a specific room, but if you can kind of feel like maybe you're not in prison, like if it's the one place you can go and feel sort of a little normal, or like if that's one way in which you can hold on to a little bit of what life might be like on the outside.
To answer this one, my producer Kat and I went to the California Institution for Women, aka CIW, and chatted with some women who are part of a cosmetology program there.
My name is Spani Duarte, and I have been incarcerated for 7 years. I am in cosmetology right now.
Okay. So have you ever watched Orange is the New Black?
I did when I was out because I was preparing myself for this place. And I was very scared.
That was your prep work?
Yeah, that was my prep work.
So are they similar to Orange is the New Black? How they get their hair done in there?
Our salon in here, it's actually a very beautiful room. There's probably around 15 stations with the high chairs. There's the big mirrors. Then we have our washing station. We have probably about 8 blow drying stations, to sit down and dry your hair. We have cabinets for towels. It looks legit. You really forget you're in prison because you're in that setting, and it's just, I forget. We're there for 6 hours and it feels good. Yeah. Kind of like brings you back to being out there and getting all that treatment done,
My name is Cecilia Ochoa, and I'm in the cosmetology class.
And how long have you been doing hair?
Since I was a little girl.
Seriously?
Yeah, I used to do my brother and my sister's hair.
We asked Cecilia another question of yours about hairdressers as therapists.
Yes.
Remember that question?
Yes, I do. I feel like a lot of people spill the tea to their hairstylist.
When you're doing people hair, do they tell you all their secrets?
Actually, yeah. They did talk to me a lot. They just share about their life and like what's going on for them in that moment in time. Like people that are getting ready to go to board, or like an anniversary of when their crime happened, or a death of a loved one. And so just hearing them out and being able to just be there for them as a listening ear and be like I'm here for you, They leave lighter, They leave lighter.
So it's pretty much a counseling session.
It can be, for sure.
I bet it also depends on whether or not you have people close enough in your life that you just share things with already. And I bet for people who are more reserved and don't share or don't have close friends or family, maybe going to the hair salon or the barber is an opportunity to share things you wouldn't, they don't share with anyone else.
That sounds about right. Some people are reserved like that. I think I'm reserved, but I do have a lot of people I can't share with.
Yeah, so if you're already sharing there, you don't got to share with your hair person. I feel like it's such an intimate thing to let someone touch your hair and they have to wash it. And, it's just so personal that I think it relaxes you and you just feel comfortable sharing, but not everyone.
Back in San Quentin, we asked Oscar that same question. Do you feel that being a barber is also, do you have to be a therapist to your clients?
You don't have to, but I think it's an escape route, and sometimes the clients could be going through something difficult, and they just get to talking sometimes, and hey, I'm going through this, I'm going through that. I had one dude talk about he wanted to commit suicide. He wanted to overdose on dope.
He wanted to go out with a cool haircut?
With a cool haircut. And once he did that, I stopped. I kind of didn't want to finish the haircut. I was like, hold up, am I like enabling his fucking thought process right now? But I just talked to him about my trials and tribulations that I came through. And I think that helped him out. I did tell his celly, I was like, hey, bro, you know what I mean? Just look out for your cellies. And luckily, he went to go get high, but I don't think he did the amount he wanted to do to finish the job. So, yeah, that was pretty deep.
That's deep. Barbara, your facial expression changed just now.
That's so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
You know, you have to think that hairstylists aren't trained therapists, right? But I think that's such a moment of empathy between two humans and a moment of connectedness in a place where you might not expect it. And that's so special.
Yeah, and I can imagine that Oscar being hit with that, not even able to articulate, like, hold up, you know, this is a different part of counseling, but I'm going to do the best I can, you know, with what I have right here. I'm just going to talk.
Yeah, and then he shared his own story, which I'm sure maybe in some way was healing for him as well.
Well, it looked like your head is shaping up a little bit.
Jet. I can't see anything, but I know he
way better because you came in here looking like a little bell pepper. So, Oscar, can you tell me about the program where you're cutting correctional officers' hair and what's that's like? So there's this new program, part of the California model, where correctional officers can get their hair cut by incarcerated barbers. And the idea behind this is to break down the us versus them mentality. So that's pretty much what the California model is about. So Oscar was telling me this story about the first time he cut a correctional officer's hair.
Honestly, I was nervous. There was a lot of officers standing around watching, right? So this was like, what if I cut him by accident? These clippers are sharp. I'm cutting his hair and I feel my hands shaking. I mean, I trust my skills, but I was just uncomfortable. And I was like, man, this ain't good. I'm gonna fuck up his hair.
So it was sweat beating down your head?
Everywhere. Forehead, down my neck, my back, everywhere. My legs were sweating. It felt like I finished out of the gym. And eventually we both just started chopping it up and the same thing, conversation, how long I've been cutting hair, why do I cut hair? And I even went on to like, why did you become a CO? Like, what attracted you to that? I think we just got talking about whiskey and fishing and traveling, and it was just a whole nother, we weren't in the prison yard. We weren't.
So y'all was at the barbershop?
Exactly. We were in the barbershop just chopping it up and just talking about life.
So, you know, usually correctional officers and incarcerated people don't have open dialogues. Like, you know, them having a conversation, let's say about family or about whiskey can be considered overfamiliar. They have conversations they shouldn't be having.
And I remember, didn't you guys do an episode on where they're not even supposed to touch the correctional officers? And there was the man who was choking and the prisoner was so scared to help him. So I imagine touching a corrections officer is just like such a different experience. And yeah, so anxiety provoking.
Yes, because simply touching a correctional officer can be an assault. So you can see why Oscar was sweating bullets. And that's so this whole California model is basically a ploy to break down the walls, if you will.
Yeah, and what a great way to humanize both sides. Yeah.
That's the whole mission. Up next, you wanted to know whether people in prison make their own hair products. What's your name?
Martha.
Martha, how long you been locked up, Martha?
I've been in and out for a long time, but I'm going home in 10 days.
Oh, that's what's up. Good shit.
Out of here.
So tell us about this mascara for your hair. What does that do?
Okay, so we don't have dye hair, so we have to do something to cover the white hairs. Now we're getting older, you know? So we get the mascara, we cover our hair. Or the girls get the PIA soap, the institution soap that we have here, that they give us for free. And the denture tablets, and we make like a paste, and we put it in our hair. It dyes your hair blonde, yeah.
So I wonder, look, what chemicals is in that to do that?
I don't know, there's something in there because it makes your clothes white.
Damn.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's horrible for their hair.
I'm sure because the PIA soap I know for a fact has lye in it. And it's a trip. When I was talking to her, I didn't catch on to what she said. She said denture tablets. I don't know what's in denture tablets. All I can remember was the commercial and you put the tablet in the water and it started bubbling. So it's something, it's something in there.
I've heard of other techniques, for example, using dark eyeshadow, to touchen up the roots. I've also learned coffee. When I was in county, people used coffee a lot to darken their hair and to make like a creamy paste,
I mean, that makes sense. Coffee dyes your teeth, right?
Coffee and probably conditioner or something.
That type of stuff ain't sticky though?
It's sticky, but it works. It's tinsy.
Yeah,
You'd be surprised. They use jelly too for gel. Yeah.
Serious?
Yes. We get creative, I'm telling you. When we don't have access to these things, we got to improvise.
I've seen some pretty creative stuff. The funniest thing that I've seen was with dreadlocks, right?
Here's Maserati E again.
So somebody colored their dreads using Kool-Aid. They colored the tip of their dreads using the Kool-Aid. But then some people used to hit their dreads, and what I mean by hit them is like twist them down with honey and jelly. And one of my boys woke up with hella ants in his head because this dude had a head full of honey and jelly.
Oh my God.
And it I ain't gonna lie, it didn't look bad. Like it looked like some real hair died by the end of it all.
Oh my God, I would freak out if I woke up with ants on my hair.
Yeah, that's crazy. But I can say this. I remember back in the day when I was in solitary confinement, and right before I went, I say about probably a week prior going to said I had got my hair texturized like a jerry curl. And so with a jerry curl, you have to have moisturizer, stuff like that to keep it moist, to keep it oily and stuff. But when you go to the hole, you don't get that type of stuff. So I'm in the hole, and the only remedy is to use butter in place of curl activator or grease. And I'm like, I ain't finna put no butter in my hair. I'm kind of cool on that. So I rolled it out for a couple of weeks, and by the time I was really transferred, I just cut my hair off. That was the easiest solution because I wasn't finna put butter in my hair to keep my hair and just have a buttery head. I wasn't finna do that.
I feel like butter would be so hard. Like you think about you wash your hands and it's even like, you would not have gotten rid of that butter forever.
Yeah, I mean, it would have probably kept it nice. It would have probably been oiled up. And I can just imagine, it being like 98 degrees and the butter start dripping down and smelling. And yeah, I didn't want to be like a little popcorn up in there. Now, on to another one of your questions. And I really like this one because it was about George Jackson.
Yeah.
And George Jackson, as people may remember, is the guy who was killed in San Quentin in 1971. And George Jackson was a revolutionary. He was like, when he was in prison, at a young age, he was a big figure in the Black Panther movement. Barbara, you asked about a rumor that George Jackson hid a gun in his hair. So I asked my friend Maserati E if this could really happen.
I feel like if that's your intentions, you could do that with any hairstyle. Like literally any hairstyle, you can get creative and hide something in it. Like, I don't want to give away too much, you know what I'm saying? But as far as, like, things that I've done, I recall being on plenty of prison yards with a knife in my ponytail, for sure. And I was getting pat down and everything, but they not grabbing my ponytail. And it was fluffy, you know what I mean? So I used to have mine at the perfect length to where that fluff is still prominent and it's not poking through that. You know what I mean? But I used to always have a knife in my ponytail, for sure.
Huh. Any thoughts on that, Barbara?
I mean, my first thought is, I guess would it be a tiny knife? Like
what's a tiny knife? How many inches?
I don't know. And if it's fluffy, doesn't it stick out?
So,
but he must have very thick hair.
I would say it is a tiny knife. It might just scratch a person and make a person mad. So in prison, you won't have a tiny knife. You will have a longer knife. And usually knives are not just like average knives that you think of. Knives in prison are more, not all of them, but are more ice picky. They look like ice picks. So it'll be long, skinny, and sharp. and something that you can probably conceal. He had thick hair, so, it's easy to probably braid it down in a braid that's going down your back.
Oh, fascinating.
And Barbara, you also asked about whether there are any hairdos that are illegal in prison. And for the most part, I can say no. Pretty much you can have any hairdo you want. But I'll say, let me see, maybe back in the early 2000s, CDCR came with some type of policy where they were trying to make everyone cut their hair and shave. But then there was a protest by the Native Americans because, this is a part of their culture, their religion. So they end up winning, and everything went back to the way it was, where there were no rules about hair.
Yeah.
Of course, there's other rules that have nothing to do with the institution. Prison, politics, race stuff. And those rules might make it so barbers can only cut certain kinds of people's hair. So being on a level 2, I know it's a little different. But when you was on a level 4, were you restricted to only cutting certain people's hair?
Yes, sir. Being a Southern Hispanic, I wasn't allowed to cut anybody outside of my own race or anybody that was not a Southern Hispanic. Here is, now that it's a non-designated program facility, I run my own program. I'm not restricted to cutting anybody's hair. I follow my own rules, and I feel free to cutting anybody's hair.
So Oscar's talking about San Quentin, but in other prisons like level 3s, level 4s, which is more maximum security, that's not the case. You'd have a barber for each race. You'd have a white barber, you'd have a black barber, you'd have an Asian barber, you'd have an Hispanic barber.
So when he says not allowed, that's not like a rule from the prison. That's a rule among prisoners.
Yes, that is what we would call an underground rule.
Wow.
Now, your final question about hair is tied to identity in prison. What did you mean by that, Barbara?
Well, I told you a little bit about how my hair is such a part of my identity, and I've had bangs since I was a small child. My son has this kind of mohawk mullet haircut that is he just loves it. And I feel like it's silly, and he's like that. And I think a lot of people use their hair to express themselves and communicate things about themselves. And then it also got me thinking about skinheads, right? You're really sending a message when you're a white person and you shave your head like that. So yeah, just all thoughts around that. If people feel like maybe they can't do what they want with their hair because they want to present a different image in prison even.
Right. So I'm sure there are a few people who want just like a regular cut while they're in prison so they can, fly under the radar or whatnot. But I know at least one guy who did the opposite of that. That's Maserati E, who we heard from earlier.
For a long period of time, my hair was heavily tied to my identity, right? That was a huge identifier of me. It's a lot of people with the name E. So when they which E? E from Oakland. Okay, which E from Oakland? It's a lot of them. Lil Brad with the crazy haircut. You know what I mean? So I think that definitely played a huge part into my identity for sure. And that's the beauty of it, right? Because, in prison, it kind of forces you to resemble the ones around you. You got to wear the same clothes. If you alter those clothes, you could get in trouble. So it really kind of limits creativity, but it was really liberating because it was me getting out of the norm, if we will, right? So it made me feel free, which ultimately made me wish I was out even more because it's man, I feel this free in here. When I get out, I could only imagine what's obtainable.
So let me ask this to you, Tom. What type of hairstyles do you really like?
I just wanted a low fade so that I have some hair so it doesn't look like I'm dying yet or I'm an old man, But kind of most of my life I had a shaved head.
So you didn't do the BTS haircuts?
No, I'm from a different area.
Different area?
Yeah, I'm from Long Beach. I'm from LA. Okay. You know what I mean? There's the Asians from Orange County that they dye their hair and
the blonde tips.
Yeah, they blonde tips and they got the black bangs. I'm from Long Beach where...
You don't do mousse or nothing?
No, we just shave our head.
So y'all just had the bald heads?
Yeah, we just had the bald heads. I think we were just copying the blacks and the Hispanic gangs because we were all gang members down there.
Right.
We dressed like them. We shave our head. Only difference is we speak a different language. For me, I saw a psych maybe 6-7 years ago, and she had pointed out that if I make it if I really I was starting to change my life, right? That even though it's just an external thing, it goes, people view you differently. And then, you know what I mean? It really it struck me. So I said, okay, if I look meaner or I look aggressive because I have a shaved head, let me try this hair thing. It felt really awkward. But then I noticed people started saying that I look like a different person, nicer.
What do you think about Michael Jordan and his bald head?
Yeah, but he knows how to dunk, and you know what I mean? He got championship. If you know how to play sports and then you run around with bald head, I'm pretty sure people don't look at you bad, right? But I got gang tattoos on my hand, my arms. And then, if you got a bald head, it just fits into that little category, and I don't want to be seen in that category no more.
All right, Barbara, it's time for the break. Then I have a story for you about my friend Maserati E and the way his hair kept him connected to his brother while he was on the inside. Do you want to take us to the break?
Sure.
And what would you say to take us to the break?
I don't know.
What? What would Nigel say? Or what would I say throwing it to the break?
Don't go anywhere. We're going to continue cutting it up.
Okay, we'll go with that. We'll be right back.
You're going to have to really cut his June the barber.
So, we're back with Barbara, our listener from Los Angeles, who wrote us with a first-rate ear hustle episode topic, which is hair in prison.
Yeah.
And Barbara, when I read your suggestion, the first person that came to my mind was Maserati E, who we heard from earlier. Because when he and I were in prison together, he used to have a signature hairdo like none other. What was a hairstyle for Maserati like when you were incarcerated?
Man, so I had a very unique style, right? It was about, I think, 3-4 hairstyles in one. Let me describe it like this. So it was like fades on the sides. The sides was faded. The top initially started off like curly with a long part going it was going across like a third of my head, going all the way to the back. And then the back went into a mohawk. And then I also had a ducktail.
Wait a minute, hold on. I'm watching your facial expression. You over there trying to put this together.
Well, I think it must be sort of like my son's, because my son has got this ducktail mohawk thing going, but then he just flops it over to the side. But I mean, to be curly here and then mohawk here, and then something else. It's a lot of work.
Oh yeah, Maserati had tiers to it. I'm talking about for him, the side would be blended in to the skin, and then it'd go to maybe a half inch of just regular hair, and then the next one would be a little longer and it'd be waves, and then the next tier might be a braid going towards the back. Then the top part would be this mohawk that's going down. And yeah, I'm telling you, Maserati had a nice hairstyle, and then he might even have a little afro part on this side just sticking out, just this one little piece over here that's combed out. So he really was creative with his hairstyle, and it was cool because it was his style. It's how you knew him.
Did it look good?
Oh, he kept it right.
It started when I was in North Kern State Prison in Delano, and they wasn't tripping off of designs in your hair. You could get haircuts with designs in it. So I became iconic for having a guitar always in the side of my head. So I feel like we started a wave, for sure. Because after I started getting the guitar, you started seeing all type of designs, from grapes in people's head to designer stuff like Versace and Louis in people's head. People start getting creative, you know what I mean? Once we was able to open up those doors. So I felt like it kind of started a wave. So when I knew I was going to San Quentin, I knew I had to come with that sauce. I went all out. Don't get me wrong, everybody wasn't receptive to it initially. I was the butt of a lot of jokes, but my response used to be this what your kids gonna want when we come home. I guarantee it.
All the time. Then in 2015, while Maserati was still incarcerated, he got some bad news from home. His brother had been killed.
I recall like calling him over and over and over, knowing he was gone, and just found myself constantly calling and leaving texts and all that because I was kind of delusional. You know what I mean? I would still call regularly and think and really believe like, nah, you finna pick up this time. Like this ain't real. I'm gonna wake up. That's what's finna happen.
When Maserati's sister went to identify their brother's body, she was able to cut off a few of his dreads, which were given out to people who were close to him, like Maserati. The only problem was Maserati was in prison at the time, and you can't receive gifts. So his mom came up with a plan to try to pass it off to him during one of their visits.
Visiting room was packed. Would definitely remember that. It was super packed, a lot going on. But we were in somber moods because my brother's death was still pretty fresh. And I recall being somewhat nervous because I didn't want her to get in trouble or anything like that. So I remember trying to slyly like make it a part of my hair. So I tied it into a knot and initially started off with that fake yawn, like, to get my hands up there, and then tied it in. I remember even leaving that visit, my heart was just pounding.
And after that, strange things started to happen.
And when I first locked the dread in my head, I felt connected. I felt like I had a part of my brother with me. And at that time, he was in like a lot of my dreams. And I felt like it was because of that dread. Like he was in a lot of my dreams. We was hollering, we was catching up. Like it was a lot of like normalcy to the dreams. Like the very first dream, for sure, I definitely remember that. It was weird. It started off with kicking it, and then time kind of stopped, and then we just kept chopping it up. Initially, I was in a state of confusion. Like, what the fuck just happened? Because I'm a believer, that your dreams mean stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm aware how the subconscious plays a role in our dreams and stuff like that. But I also believe, like, when we dream, it's kind of like a place in between life and death. It was definitely good to see him and vibe with him, but then it reinstills the reality that he's no longer with us.
Eventually, the dream stopped, but I think the dread helped Maserati feel like the connection to his brother was still there, even after he got out of prison.
I love that. Energy never dies,
Well, that may be true, but it wasn't the case for Maserati's hairstyle.
It was locked into my head until, unfortunately, not that long ago, on the highway at that, it was ripped out by a baby and thrown out the window all in one motion. So I don't even got it no more. Man, heartbreaking. What? Crazy.
So you driving?
We driving. My dread dangling in the back, flapping in the wind because the window down. The baby in the car seat, snatch it, one hard motion, whop, and it got sucked up out the window, gone.
Oh, that gotta hurt.
Yeah. So, yep. Don't got that part of the swag no more. It was a part of me for so long, you know what I mean? But it's one of those things where it just is what it is.
Kids are savages.
Man, ain't they? Just took his heart from him,
Oh my God.
I would say this for Maserati, maybe, that was probably one of the best possible endings to that story. Because he probably would have never took it out his head.
Yeah. Sometimes people gotta propel the change forward for you.
Indeed. All right, so let's go check in one last time with Tom to see how his haircut turned out. So you sure you don't want the line up in the front?
I think we should do it, Tom.
No, we ain't doing that, man. No, it's cool. I'm good.
Sure, Tom? I got you, bro.
It's okay. It's okay. Thank you, man. No, I'm good.
I'm sure you get a line up in the front with your bang, correct?
Yeah, I do myself. It's not perfect, but I try.
Yeah, he wasn't going for that because, usually in prison, people would push your line further and further and further back, and then they try to correct it, which make it only go back further. Yeah. So people try to stay away from people messing with the front of their hairs.
Oh
but, I was over there pressing them, you know what I'm saying? Like,
you
man,
could
get a
hear
line
the
up.
tension in his voice.
No, he's serious. He's serious. That would mess your whole hairdo up because you're going to be like, fuck, man, cut it all off. You know what I'm saying? But I was able to convince him to go on get a lineup. We're dealing with the best underground barber in San Quentin. So you might as well go on and, get that lineup.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, I look like a bad kung fu movie.
This is for the story. This is for the story. Let's see how you do.
All right. So if it looked like I got 10 head, right? Instead of 4 head,
it's going to be good. It's going to be good for the story.
All right, let's go.
Okay.
All right. Don't go too crazy.
Oscar, are you nervous?
Yes.
Are you sweating right now?
I'm sweating right now. I'm like, damn.
But I think you needed this part for the finish of the haircut because you was growing some shit.
You had hair on the forehead. That's not even part of the hair of the lines.
Yeah.
Try not to laugh. If I laugh right now,
I'm holding your hair, bro.
Next thing you know, I'm gonna have that half bald head. Does it look right?
It looked cool.
Okay.
I think it needed.
All right. I'm gonna trust the Deke. Sneak understood, man.
It's all good.
So I got one more question too. When a person get out your chair, do you get a handshake? Have you ever got a hug?
I get both. Hugs, handshakes.
Kiss?
Nah, not no kiss, man. Nah, not no kiss. Mainly half a hug. A handshake with the hug. With the
side hug.
Yeah, with the side hug, yep.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Handshake, side hug, right there. Well, Barbara, what do you think?
I love it. I love it. I wonder what's your favorite hairstyle you ever had in prison?
Shit. I would say the favorite hairstyle is when maybe, say for instance, if I got braids and I got my braids done, or if I was doing like the chiseled up, like tiered taper style and I'm on my way to a visit and I'm looking great, I would say most of the time I'll look dusty and raggedy because I don't care. But if I was going on a visit to go see my family, then I would definitely clean up and make it look like I, wasn't going through the struggles. So before we let you go, Barbara, we got one more surprise for you.
Hi, Barbara. It's so nice to meet you. Thanks for this question.
That's Piper Kerman. She wrote Orange is the New Black, and she's my homegirl.
So the salon is real. In my memoir, I talk about the salon because it was one of those curious, opposite world, bizarro world places in the prison where I was incarcerated. And much like you say, in so many ways, it was just like a salon that anyone might visit out in the free world. However, there was a cage on the wall where all the sharps, sort of all of the haircutting instruments were always locked up in this cage, and a correctional officer was responsible for unlocking them. So you could get an official job as a hairstylist in the salon. And then if there was room and the salon could get very crowded and very busy, like in advance of visiting hours, for example. If it was less busy, like if you had a friend who was good at hair, you might be able to get in there and use the salon as well. But that was sort of a privilege jealously guarded by the women who worked in the salon.
Let me ask you this. Do you remember any of your hairstyles in prison?
Well, so I have, pretty ordinary hair. It's very, straight and, sort of sits on my head and doesn't do very many fancy things. But what did happen is I got my hair colored. So you can purchase like a temporary low color hair color, or at least you used to be able to. What I remember very clearly is that I was writing term papers for one of the OGs, a woman who had been incarcerated for 25 years, who was close to getting released, and she was taking a college class, and she was really stressed out about her term papers. So the truth is, like, I tried to coach her how to write them, and eventually she was like, look, Piper, you're going to write my term paper. I was like, okay. But her thank you to me for doing that, for writing her term papers and getting her an A in the class, was a box of the temporary hair dye.
Wow.
Okay. So I highly appreciate you for popping in, Piper. And Barbara, I want to say thank you for assisting me in co-hosting this episode. You definitely did a great job. So now, let's take us out here ear hustle style. I'm Earlonne Woods.
I'm Barbara Sueco McGuire.
I'm Piper Kerman. Thanks
for listening.
So,
maybe this isn't true, but I swear I've noticed that you've changed your hair a couple times recently, that you've been paying more attention to your hair. Is that true?
Well, I mean, I've gotten braids done a couple of times.
Yeah.
So.
No, I know you're into changing hair. It was just something like it was note to self.
Okay.
That's interesting. Well, it was fun to hear things I knew and things I didn't know. Like, I had no idea that there was a salon at a women's prison.
So do you see yourself stopping by the salon and getting you some highlights?
I would love to get some highlights. Not with the jelly.
Nah, hell no. That was more of a gel.
Yeah. Sometimes when Maserati's hair was at its most complicated, I used to think sometimes the top of his head looked like a little pterodactyl because it was so. But I remember that story about his brother's lock in his hair really made a big impression on me, and it amazed me. It also scared me. It's such a bodily thing belonging to another person to put in your hair. I couldn't tell if it was a good thing to do,
right?
Or would it bring good luck or bad luck? This is a very emotional story.
Well, I'm glad you
I totally enjoyed it. If I ever get a chance to talk to Barbara, I've got a burning question for her.
Well, that may just happen.
Nice.
What's up, Barbara?
Hi, Earlonne.
Hey, Barbara. It's Nigel. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Nigel. So nice to meet you.
So I listened to the episode, which was very fun. And the first part was where Earlonne gets given his 3 choices. Mm-hmm. And I knew right away, I was like, hair is the one he's picking, hands down. So kudos for coming up with a totally Earlonne topic. Okay. But I need an honest answer to this.
Mm-hmm.
When they were describing Maserati-E's hairdo, could you really follow the complexity of that description and see it in your mind's eye?
I kind of did. He did a really good job of describing it. And then I don't know why, I think because my son sort of has it tight on the side, and then I was just sort of imagining those pieces on him, which is kind of funny too, which I think is why I was laughing. But not fully. I would love to see a photo.
Well, you've got good power of imagination because I know him and I've seen him, and I was really listening carefully, in my mind's eye, trying to puzzle it together. I was like, this is complex. But it does. But Maserati's a complex guy, so it made sense. Anyway,
it sounds incredible though, and so brave, and I think courageous to have a hairstyle like that, especially inside.
Yeah, Maserati is a special person. He stands out no matter where you see him. Anyway, I could chat with you for a long time, but I think that we are here to record credits. But nice job. It was really fun to hear you and Earlonne together on the episode.
Thank you.
All good. So y'all want to start off at the credits?
Okay. My name is Barbara Sueco McGuire, and I am so stoked to have done this episode with Earlonne. It's a true honor. Ear Hustle is produced by Nigel Poor, Earlonne Woods, Amy Standen, Bruce Wallace, Rasan New York Thomas, and Kat Shugnicht. Shubnam Sigmund is the managing producer. The producing team inside San Quentin includes Darrell Sadiq Davis and Tom Wynn. The inside managing producer is Tony Tafoya. Thanks also to Aristeo San Pablo. Thanks to Warden Andes at San Quentin and Acting Warden Parker and Lieutenant Newborg at the California Institution for Women, as well as Warden De La Cruz and Lieutenant Williams at the Central California Women's Facility for their support of the show. Thanks also to this woman here.
My name is Lieutenant Giamari Berry, and I serve as the Public Information Officer here at San Quentin Rehabilitation Center, and I approve this episode.
This episode was made possible by the Just Trust, building a smaller, more humane engine of justice and safety across the country.
Earlonne Woods and Bruce Wallace sound designed the show, with help from Darrell Sadiq Davis. Fernando Arruda and Harry Colhane are our engineers.
Music for this episode comes from Antoine Banks Williams, David Jossie, Darrell Sadiq Davis, Maserati E, Fernando Arruda, and me. For more information about this episode and about our upcoming live tour, check out Ear Hustle's website, earhustlesq.com.
Ear Hustle will always be free, but if you want more Ear Hustle without ads, sign up for Ear Hustle Plus. Subscribers get access to Ask Nigel and Earlonne Anything episodes and Where Are They Now episodes, where we follow up with folks who have been on the show before and we see how they're doing now.
On last week's Ear Hustle Plus episode, Nigel and I answered some pretty challenging questions from listeners.
Oh, Earlonne, it was really fun. So listeners, please keep up with those in-depth, probing, and even personal questions.
Yes.
Very fun to answer.
Subscribe to Ear Hustle Plus at earhustlesq.com/plus or directly in Apple Podcasts.
Ear Hustle is a proud member of Radiotopia from PRX, a network of independent, creator-owned, listener-supported podcasts.
Discover audio with vision at radiotopia.fm.
I'm Nigel Poor.
I'm Earlonne Woods.
Thanks for listening.
I noticed like guys who cut their hair really well, they're like meticulous about their own hair though.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to go to a barber whose shit is fucked up then.
No, hell no. It's like, yeah, going to like a skinny chef.
Radiotopia.